Morning and welcome to Morning Maths. You just need a pencil and paper and you know how to do this now. The only difference today is that all of the answers are going to make a history timeline. Well, from question 4 onwards, they're going to make a history timeline, and as we're going along, see if you know some of these dates that are going to come up as the answers. So just a little bit different today. Let's go on to Morning Maths Day 16. And you can see I've got a couple of historical pictures up, which I'll talk about later on. So question 1. Use 7, 8 and 6 to make the biggest number you can. 7, 8, 6. So units, tens and hundreds. So we want to make the biggest number we can. We want to put the 8 at the front, biggest number at the front. Done that. Then the 7, done that. Then the 6, done that. That's the biggest number we can make, 876. And I'm moving on to question 2. That's not part of the timeline yet. I'll get there once I get to question 4. So question 2 is 438 plus 79. Be careful with your lining up. Pause if you need more time to copy. I'll put my hats on. Units, tens, hundreds. 8 plus 9 is 17. 3 plus 7 is 10, plus the little one, 11. 4 plus the little one is 5. 517. Pause if you need time to get those workings done. And I'm on to question 3. Plus makes things bigger, doesn't it? Yep, that got bigger. Let's go on to number 3. 152. 1, 5, 2. Take away 86. Careful with your lining up. Lines up down the right, doesn't it? Always careful with your lining up. 2 take away 6, you can't do. Let's get some help for that 2. By going to the 5, making it go down to a 4 and borrowing 1. We borrowed 1 from the tens column, didn't we? Because the units column didn't have enough in it. The units column had 2. But we borrow 1 10 and now it's worth 12. And 12 take away 6 we can do. That is 6. 4 take away 8 we also can't do. So I'm going to borrow from the 1. It will go down to a 0 and a 1 here. This is quite a difficult one because there's a lot of borrowing here in this year 3 question. 14 take away 8, that does work now. That is 6. And nothing at the front, so it's just 66. Okay. So let's get on to number 4. This is where I'm going to start my history timeline. The first time I've done a question like this, where you multiply something by 0, 8 times nothing, 8 times 0 is just 0. Because anything times nothing is going to be nothing. So 8 times 0 equals 0. That was pretty easy for number 4. If you've got no 8s, you've got nothing. And we go on to number 5. Oh, that date is going to start our calendar because 0 is the year roughly when it's thought Jesus was born, roughly around the year 0, and we started counting from there. In part of our calendar, we started counting from there, and we're now in the year 2020, 2020 years since when it's thought Jesus was born. That's why our calendar starts in the year 0. So we move on to question 5. 43 divided by 1. 43 is quite a big number. In year 3, I usually do division with smaller numbers. So this means sharing, but it's sharing 43, so 43 sweets, divided by 1 person. But if it only is sharing between 1 person, that person just gets all of them. So they'll just get 43. So you don't really have to do anything, do you? 43 shared between 1, it's still 43. That's what happens when you divide by 1. The number won't change. That's nice and easy. I wonder if anyone knows what happened in the year 43 AD in history. 43 AD. It's actually when the Romans invaded Britain. You may have learned about Romans in history, and that's when they invaded Britain, 43 years roughly after Jesus was born. Let's go on to number 6. Use 401 to make the biggest number you can. 4 and 0 and 1. To make the biggest number I can, I'm definitely going to want the 4 at the front, but then I'm going to want a 1 and a 0. And it's 410, or as a date, 410 AD. 410 AD is when the Romans left Britain. They couldn't look after Britain anymore, really, and it's the start of what's called the Saxon period. All of this timeline will appear in the answers, so you'll be able to see the whole timeline now. Number 7, 489 plus 304. Careful with our lining up. 9 plus 3, 13. 8 plus a little 1, 9. 4 plus 3, 7. Number 7 was plus. The first number got bigger, 793. And in the year 793, England and Ireland and Scotland and Wales experienced the start of raids from people they called the Vikings, who came from Denmark and Norway. Viking raids began starting on Saxon Britain in the year 793. We'll move on to question 8. Question 8 is a minus. 2000 take away 934. 2009 take away 934. Lots of borrowing here, because 0 take away 4 you can't do. Don't think it's 4 or 0, it's not. You can't do it. You need to do all the borrowing right across to the 2. Goes down to a 1, lends a 1. Then this 10 can go down to a 9 and lend a 1. And this 10 can go down to a 9 and lend a 1. And we finally get what we need in the units column to do 10 take away 4. 10 take away 4 is going to be 6. 9 take away 3 is 6. This is a famous date coming up. 9 take away 9 is 0 and 1 at the front. 1066, or if it's a year, you say 1066. And then the year 1066, we say AD on the end, roughly 1066 years since Jesus was born. In the year 1066 was a Battle of Hastings. There's a picture of some Saxon warriors trying to defend themselves against what was a Norman invasion, the invasion of the Normans, who were descended from the Vikings. And the famous Battle of Hastings in 1066 meant the Normans invaded Britain and conquered Britain. Actually, the last time that Britain was fully invaded and conquered. We go on to question 9. 297 times 5. 297 times 5. 5 times 7 is 35. 5 times 9 is 45, plus 3 is 48. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 4 is 14. 1485, or if it was a date, we would say 1485. And that's what begins what's called the Tudor period. You've probably heard of King Henry VIII. Well, the Tudor period began when his dad, Henry VII, became King of England in 1485. We'll be moving on to question 10. Question 10, 1492. I was going to do the bus stop here, but when you just divide it by 1, it's still going to be 1492. To say it as a date, you say 1492, and that is when America was discovered, the continent of the Americas, really. When Christopher Columbus, he actually landed in the Caribbean area and discovered a new continent, which later was found to be North and South America. Before that, people didn't know about it. Before 1492, no one knew about America. And then, well, perhaps the Vikings had gone there. They probably had. But a lot of people didn't know about America in 1492. People who lived in Europe, that is. Let's move on to question 11. Let's just get these Saxons out of the way. And we'll look at question 11. Actually, for the fast people, I'm going to remove this last one as well, which is the Great Fire of London. But you'll see that date coming up soon. Question 11 is something equals 1,000. So this is what I call answer box at the front questions, because something equals, so they've just put the answer at the front. Something equals 1,000 plus 500 plus 9. A new type of question list today. Really, it's just a plus, because the question is here, and there's nothing missing in the question. There's nothing broken about the question. It's just a plus, and the answer is here. So all we have to do in this technically place value question is do the addition and put the answer in the front. The answer box is just at the front. 1000 plus 500 plus 9. Let's put some hats on. We can do that probably without a method, because there's 9 units, there's 500s, there's 1000. The tens just needs a placeholder 0, and it's 1509. The date is 1509, and especially year 4s possibly might know that date. That's when the famous King Henry VIII became King of England. Henry VIII. 5, 6, 7, 8. In Roman numerals, the numbers that the Romans used, and we still sometimes use, Henry VIII. That's 1509, and we'll go on to number 12. Question 12. Combined means add or plus, so 985 combined with 618. Quite an easy plus for year 5 today, because I had to make the date work. Wonder what date this is going to be. 5 plus 8 is 3, carried a 1. 8 plus 1 is 9, plus a little 1 is 10. 9 plus 1 is 10, plus 6 is 16. So we get 1603. And in date form, you would say 1603. And that's when a king called James VI of Scotland, he became King of England as well. So uniting the two countries, and it's what's called the start of the Stuart period, because he was called James Stuart. The start of the Stuart period in British history, 1603. And on we go to question 13. Quite a big takeaway question this time. 15,000, 15,000, take away 13,395. 15,000 take away 13,395. So, lots of borrowing as usual with these difficult questions. 0 take away 5 you can't do. You've got to go all the way along to the 5 to get some help. Goes down to a 4 and lends 1. Then we can take this 10 down to a 9 and lend 1. We can take this 10 down to a 9 and lend 1. And we have 10 take away 5. 10 take away 5 is 5. 9 take away 9 is 0. 9 take away 6. No, 9 take away 3 is 6. And 4 take away 3 is 1. 1 take away 1 is 0. You don't have to write that 0, do you? It's 1,605. In date form 1605. Now, you know about fireworks night, comes around every year. Remember the 5th of November. This is when Guy Fawkes tried to blow up the Houses of Parliament. He did fail, luckily. And that happened in 1605. He tried to blow up the Houses of Parliament in London. Let's go on to question 14. Question 14. 49 times 34. 49 times 34. Right, long multiplication I call this. Need this longer method. I'm going to place a 0 here so that I don't forget. And first I'm going to do 4 times 49. 4 times 9. 9, 18, 27, 36. That is 36. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 3 is 19. So the top line, 4 times 49, I put here on this top line here. 4 times 49 is 196. I've used the 4. I'm going to cross it out because I won't need it anymore. We're doing 3 times 49, but it's really 30 times 49, isn't it? Because 3 is from 34, so it's really 3 tens. But I've placed a 0 so I can pretend it's 3 to just make this method work. It's an easy way of doing it, really. 3 times 9 is 27. 3 times 9 is 27. Carried a 2. 3 times 4 is 12. Plus a 2 is 14. 1,470, that is 30 times 49 is 1,470. We have 2 answers. I'm going to cross out these little carried ones so I don't use them again. We've got to add up our 2 answers to get our final answer. 6 plus 0 is 6. 9 plus 7, 6 carried a 1. 1 plus 4 is 5, plus 1 is 6, and 1. We get the answer 1,666, or in a date, 1666, a very, very famous date in England. You might know what it is. It's the Great Fire of London in 1666. Apologies if you can hear a bit of rain on the video. It's very rainy in here. They could have done with that in 1666 when the Great Fire of London was on. Let's move on to question 15. Question 15, 5,142 divided by 3. How many 3's in 5? 1. 1 3 is 3, remainder 2. How many 3's in 21? Sing your 3's up to 21. 3, 6, 9, 12 and 15, 18, 21, it's 7. How many 3's in 4? 1 can fit in, and there'll be 1 remainder. How many 3's in 12? 3, 6, 9, 12 is 4. 1,714. So what happened in 1714 is the first king called George, maybe you're called George, the first king called George, probably not I guess, most of you are not called George. The first king called George, George I, came along in 1714, became king of, well, what's now the United England and Scotland, Great Britain really, in 1714, also including Wales. George I, there's been lots of Georges since then. Let's move on to number 16. Number 16 is what I call answer box at the front question. You've got an answer box here, equals 1,030 plus 800 plus 7. So if you look at the question, there's nothing wrong with the question, it's all there. What's missing is the answer. They just put the answer box at the front. When I say they, it was me, because I made up the flip chart, didn't I? But I just put the answer box at the front to try and trick you. So really you just have to put these together. But we can do this with place value. Thousands, hundreds, tens and units. Because we have 7 units there. We have 800 there, don't we? 800. Here we have 1,030. 30 is 3 tens, so we have 3 tens. So you put them all together, and a date that especially year 5s might recognise. 1,837 as a year is 1837, and that's when Queen Victoria became Queen of Great Britain, and she was Queen for a long, long time, till 1901. Time to move on to number 17. Number 17 is a combined question, which hopefully you know by now means plus. Combined will mean plus. 1,067 plus 845. Easy addition for year 6 as long as you're careful. Don't want to get it wrong though. 7 plus 5 is 12. Carry the 1. 6 plus 4 is 10. Plus 1 is 11. 8 plus 9 is 1 and 1. 1,912. 1912. Famous event that happened in 1912 was the Titanic disaster. Not a very happy event. Titanic sank in 1912. You may know that already. And we go on to number 18. Number 18, 3,546. Take away 1,632. Again, not a difficult takeaway for year 6. 6 take away 2 is 4. 4 take away 3 is 1. 5 take away 6 is not 1, because 5 is too small to take away 6. Need to do some borrowing. 3 goes down to a 2, lend the 1. 15 take away 6 is 9. 2 take away 1 is 1. 1,914 or 1914. And that is when a terrible event began, World War I. It lasted till 1918. They called it the Great War, the war to end all wars. They thought there'd never be any more wars after that. Sadly, that didn't work out. Let's move on to question 19. 277 times 7. Column method. For multiplication, standard method. Quite easy for year 6 again. 7 times 7 is 49. Year 6 have had an easy day today, so they can practice their history really. 7 times 7, 49, plus 4 is 53. 7 times 2 is 14, plus 5 is 19. Year 6 especially should know what started in 1939. It is World War II. Because World War I wasn't the war to end all wars. There was an even worse one in 1939 until 1945. That's question 19. And then we get to question 20. 7,864 split between 4, which means divide. If we're going to share something between 4, split something between 4, it's going to be divide. We'll use a bus stop to help. How many 4s in 7? 1 can fit in, remainder 3. Lots of 4s in 38. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24 and 28, 32, 36. That'll be it. 36, I had 9 fingers when I counted to 36. But 36 is not 38. You need 2 more to get to 38, so remainder 2. How many 4s in 26? 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. 6 makes 24. And then you can count up 2 more to get to 26, so remainder 2 again. And then how many 4s in 24? 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. It is 6. 1966. So if you're English or you like England, this is a happy date for once, because most dates are about wars and stuff, aren't they? England won the World Cup in 1966. So that's a nice date to end our timeline. So I'll show you all the answers and the timeline. Check that you've got everything correct. And I've pretty much talked about everything as we went along. So it's mostly focused on Britain, which Britain doesn't really exist until the 1700s or so. Before that, it's really England and Scotland and Wales separate. But you can see all the dates that I've talked about as we've gone through. There we go. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you again next time. Pause, of course, if you need to see the answers for longer and check carefully.